I think it's time we can now kick off. Okay, once again, good evening to you all. You are welcome to another session of Awesome Virtual Seminar. My name is Mohammed Abdullah Bello, a level 200 geological engineering student, and I'm your moderator for this ninth session. We've already spent 2 minutes of our time. We are not going to waste much time. We begin with the normal procedures. That first, then opening prayer. I would like to invite Miss Mabel to give us a very, very short opening prayer to commence the session. Miss Mabel, you can unmute and then give us a short prayer. Thank you.
Yeah, Mohammed, it seems she's not around, so I'll take over from here.
Okay, sure, that's fine.
So please, shall we pray? Almighty Father, Prince of Almighty Father, Prince of Peace and Lord of Lord, we thank you for a wonderful day like this. Into your hands we commit today's now. We pray for in-depth concerning today's lecture by Ms. Judith. We also getting the understanding so that at the end of it all, she will let you go to grasp it. In these and many things we ask through your have I prayed. Amen. Ahmed, are you around?
Yes, amen. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. So before I invite
Mohammed,
Mr.
are you in?
Yes, hello. 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 Hello.
Mohammed, louder.
Hello. Hello.
Please. Yes,
Hello,
please.
Mohammed.
Louder,
I can hear you. I can hear
Okay,
you,
sure.
Mohammed.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, so as the rules goes, we have to mute all of our microphones so that we could have a noise-free environment for the speaker to give a very, very wonderful speech for all of us to pay attention and then grab certain notes. Okay, so I will call on Mr. Emmanuel to give us an introduction, to introduce the speaker to us. So Mr. Emmanuel, it's over to you now.
Okay. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hope you can hear me, please.
Yes,
Yes, we
I
can
hear you.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker, who is in the person of Ms. Judith Buaba for tonight's virtual session, Do Technical Paper Writing. Ms. Buaba is currently a PhD student and research assistant at South Dakota School of Mines and Technology in underground production scheduling optimization. She received her bachelor's degree with honors in mining engineering from the University of Mines and Technology, Tarkwa, Ghana. After completing a national service with Goldfish Diamond Mine, she pursued graduate education at Montana Technological University, where she received her master's degree in mining engineering. Ms. Buaba has about 2 years of experience in both surface and underground mining. Her research interests are in mine planning, optimization of mine systems, mine reclamation, and rock fragmentation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ms. Judith Buaba.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emmanuel, for such.
Welcome, madam.
Thank you. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, we can. Very audible.
All
Yes,
right.
please.
Okay. Yeah, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to present a webinar on technical writing today with you all. I also want to thank the executives of Awesome Student Chapter for this opportunity to share my knowledge in technical writing to you. I know I know that today is a weekend and some of you might have had some heavy dinner already, but I want you to stick with me throughout this presentation, and I'll make sure I'll make it as interactive and lively as possible. So I'm going to share my screen here shortly. I put together a presentation where we can all discuss what technical writing is all about. So just give me a minute here and I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Just that. All right. Okay, so as Emmanuel said earlier, I'm Judith Buaba, and I'm currently a PhD student and a graduate research assistant. So today we are going to talk about what technical writing is all about. So a brief outline of today's webinar is going to be what is technical writing, and what role does technical writing play in our lives or in the life of the society, okay? And then we look at some of the skills that we need for technical writing. And then we also look at some of the characteristics of a technical paper. So when you are given a document, how will you know that this is a technical paper? And then we also look at some ideas or some sources of ideas of what to write about. Okay, you are going to write. So what at all are you going to write about? So we'll look at some areas where you can get information about what to write about. And after you have come up with your technical paper, where can you publish that technical paper? Or where do you want people to read your paper? So we'll look at some of the places where we can publish our technical paper. And then we'll look at how we can improve our technical writing skills. And then at the end of it all, we'll have a question and answer session. I believe some of you here on this platform will have some experience in technical writing. And I would really like your contributions and your ideas on some of the things that I might have missed out from everything. So during the question and answer session, I really would like you to contribute your ideas to what technical writing is all about. So to start off, I would say writing itself is a skill that anybody can learn, okay? So we know that writing is like a form of communication. We are trying to convey some information or some idea to a target group or to a reader. Okay, so you need to be able to make sure that your writing is as clear as possible. So that helps us, that moves us to the next section, which is what is technical writing. So I included a traditional definition because initially technical writing used to be limited to software manuals, okay, or instructional materials. So in the beginning, when software was becoming very common, we had a lot of technical documents which come along with our products. Example, when you buy a new phone, you have a user manual in there, which will give you information about how to operate the mobile phone. Or maybe when you buy a new fridge, or maybe you buy a new computer, you have a user manual which helps you or gives you information as a reader or as a user on how to operate that particular equipment. Okay, but in recent times technical writing has kind of like evolved into different areas or different specific fields. And this current definition is of technical writing is documenting technical communication used in a specific field. Okay, so like when we take in the field of mining, we have certain specific terminologies that we have. When we take the field of mineral engineering, we have specific terminologies. When we take the area of electronics or computer engineering, there are some specific terminologies in there. So the fact that you are documenting a process or you are documenting a research done in that specific field, we can call that technical writing. Okay, and then we have another definition from the Society of Technical Communication. It says that any communication that have the following qualities can be termed as a technical paper or a technical communication. And one of them is that communicating about technical or specialized topic, such as computer applications or medical procedures or environmental regulations. Okay, like when we take the field of medicine, okay, maybe we have somebody or a doctor who has written out a procedure for a type of surgery or a procedure of how to diagnose certain diseases, maybe cancer or maybe diabetes. And he has given like step-by-step information. All this information is a form of technical writing. And then we also, the second characteristics is communicating by using technology such as web pages, help files, or social media sites. All these ones are all can also be classified as technical writing. So on the web pages of late, when you are looking for a topic, when you put it into Google, you'll be directed to several web pages that talk about the subject or the topic you are looking for. When we look at our social media, especially YouTube, if you want to know how to operate a certain gadget, or you want to have some information about a specific topic, let's say in underground mining, you want to know what underground mining is all about. When you put in that information in your search button, you'll be directed to related videos that talk about that subject. So all of them are talking about giving you technical information. And then thirdly, technical writing kind of like provide instructions about how to do something. Okay, so we are kind of informing the reader and providing information about how to go about a process or how to do something so that you can get a result. So let's say you have a problem, okay, in a particular field. What information do I need to be able to solve that problem? Okay, so your role as a technical writer is that you provide that information in the form of a technical paper so that when somebody takes that information or somebody takes that paper, you are able to produce the same results as the technical writer has produced. Okay, so your role as a technical writer is that you need to be able to explain complex processes in a simple language as possible. Okay, so it says that regardless of how technical a task is, or even if technology is used to create or distribute that communication. So it means that you need to be able to explain such that even somebody who is not in your field, okay, maybe you write a document as a mining engineer, but somebody who is an electrical engineer or somebody who is a mechanical engineer can read your paper and understand what you are trying to achieve in that particular research. You get my point? So we can say that a technical paper is a written and published report describing original research results. Okay, before you start writing, you might have identified a situation or you might have identified a problem that you want people to be aware of or that you want people to have information about. So that is how you start your research, okay? So your technical paper must provide all that information. Okay, your technical paper must define the problem that you are trying to solve and must also report on the results that you received after you have completed the research. So we'll go on and talk about who a technical writer is. We know we are talking about technical writing, but we know that there's always a person behind technical writing who is a technical writer. Okay, so the technical writer is solely responsible for creating documentation that is accurate, readable, and accessible, and is also helpful for its intended audience. Okay, so when we talk about accuracy, we are talking about the data in your documentation. Your data should be obtained from an accurate source, or your data should your data should be verifiable. You know, like if somebody should take your document, they should be able to verify the information that you are providing in there. And it also has to be readable. So for instance, if you are writing your technical paper in the English language, you need to be proficient in the English language to be able to write out a document which is very understandable by the audience, okay? And then your document must also be accessible. So after you have written your technical paper, what platform or what database can you submit your paper so that it is accessible to the audience you intend to attract, or to the readers you want to attract? Okay, and then the other one, when we talk about helpful, we are talking about the fact that the information in your document should help the audience act upon the procedures or the research that you have outlined in your document. So the goal is that your readers must be able to understand. I think somebody is annotating my slides. Um, okay, so the goal here is that your readers must be able to understand any highly complex process or concept clearly. Okay, and then when we come, as I mentioned earlier, technical writing has evolved over the past years. So now it is applied in computer hardware and software. It is also applied in the field of chemistry, engineering, finance, okay, biotechnology, and the like. So when we look at technical writing, what at all is the role of technical writing? What do we aim to accomplish? Okay, technical writing aims to publish useful information that can be understood and that can be acted upon. Okay, so you've identified a problem in maybe your society, or you've identified a problem in the mining industry, and then you write about it, or maybe you do a research and then you obtain some results. That research needs to be understood by the people who are going to read that document, so that if whenever they want to apply the same process to achieve the results that they want, they can use your paper or they can use your document as a guide for that. And then it also talks about another role is that another role of technical writing is that your technical document should have a clearly stated problem, and it should also produce a clearly stated conclusion. So why am I writing about this? What is the issue at hand? Why am I writing about this particular topic? And then after I have gone through my research methods, after I've gone through my process, what were the results that I obtained? Okay, or what are the conclusions that I obtained after I had gone through the entire research? So you need to clearly state that in your documentation. So mind you, technical writing is all about communication. So right now I am communicating to you, but my medium of communication is verbal. Okay, so when we talk about technical writing, it's also a form of communication, but our medium of communication is through written document, or maybe through a web page, okay, which is all a written document. Okay, so for communication to be effective, you require quality content, you require a good language and format. In terms of language, we are looking at using the English language. This is the popular language that we write our technical reports in. So you need to be proficient, or you need to be masterful in the language in which you intend to publish or write your technical paper. So in terms of the English language, you need to know the different tenses. You need to make sure that your statements are grammatically correct. Okay, so those are some of the things you need to consider in writing a good technical paper. And then you also have to know your audience. Okay, what is your target audience? What are the which group of people are you likely to which group of people are likely to read your document? So right now, even before this presentation, I got to an idea that I'll be talking to a group of students from the University of Mines and Technology. So I know that I can include certain jargons or certain terminologies which can be understood. Okay, because how you speak to a college student is different from how you speak to a professional in a group or in an industry, or how you even communicate to somebody in high school will be different. So you need to know your audience so that when you are speaking to them or when you are communicating to them, they are able to understand the information you are providing them. And if they are using that information to solve a problem, they are able to translate the information in your technical paper or in your technical writing to solve that particular problem. So the key characteristics of technical writing is clarity. You need to be able to clarify any technical jargons. Okay, when we talk about jargons, we are talking about terms that are specific to a particular a field of study. You know, like in mining, we can talk about stope, we can talk about adit, we can talk about high grade ore. All these things are terms that a mining engineer would understand, or maybe a geologist will understand, or maybe a mineral engineer will understand. But when we take somebody like a mechanical engineer, or maybe an electrical engineer, or a computer science student, they might not be able to understand these terms. So in writing out your technical report, you need to clarify all these jargons in your writing. And you also need to reduce ambiguity as much as possible. You need to explain yourself so that the reader is on the same platform as you, or it has the same understanding of the subject as you, as the technical writer. So I came across this quote which says that state your facts as simply as possible, even boldly. No one wants flowers of eloquence or literary ornament in a research article. So a research article is intended to inform a group of people. So you need to make sure that it is as clear as possible so that people can repeat whatever process you are describing in there. So what are some of the benefits we can get from technical writing? You know, as a technical writer, what are some of the benefits you can get? One is you become a lifelong learner, okay, because you are writing about a specific field, you are writing about a specific technology or something. And in order to be able to write about something, you need to have a lot of information about what you are writing about. So it pushes you to learn more. It pushes you to read more or understand the literature behind the specific topic you are writing about. And it also helps you to become an expert in a specific field. The more you write, the more experience you get, and then you can become an expert in that field. And it also helps you to become an excellent communicator, both written and verbal. Okay, so from the US labor statistics states that there is going to be a 10% increase in demand for technical writers between 2014 and 2024 because of technology. Okay, we are producing more scientific and technical products. Okay, so what I would say is that sometimes I don't think there's a job title, like the job title is not specifically like a technical writer. There's not a job title specifically stated as technical writer, but you can be a technical writer in a specific field. So let's say you are a professor in mining, or you are a professor in mechanical engineering, okay, but you produce or you publish a lot of papers. In a way, you are a technical writer, but your job title is maybe a lecturer in mechanical engineering, or a lecturer in mining engineering. So in this way, as you are going, you are kind of like as you are producing more or you are writing more, you are improving your skills as a technical writer. So we come to some of the skills that you need for technical writing. Okay, so first of all, you need to improve on your research skills. When we talk about research, we are talking about knowing how or where to get information to support the topic or to support the idea you want to write about. So in recent times, we have the internet, okay, but the internet is very broad. We have a lot of resources on the internet. So which specific areas can I go to get the information that I need? So you need to learn how to know how to collect data. And data can also come in the form of interviews or creating surveys. Okay, so you need to know how to generate surveys, or need to conduct interviews to get the information that you need for the particular topic or particular title you want to write about. And then we also look at the audience perception. You need to be an excellent writer. You need to know how to draw you need to know how to attract the reader's interest. Okay, so as a technical writer, your reputation comes, or your reputation is built on the number of reads you get for your technical paper or your technical writing or your technical documentation, let me say. So the more the more people read your work, and the more people are citing your work in in other publications, the more exposed you become, okay, or like you build on your reputation. So you need to make sure that if you are writing your document, you are attracting a certain group of readers, okay, so that they can read your document and understand it. And as they read, they are able um, to form an idea of what you are talking about. So it also comes to the point that you should know your audience, okay? And then another thing is your communication skills. You need to have the ability to listen, to record, and communicate. And when you are writing out your document, you need to make sure that you reduce ambiguity as much as possible. So for instance, you are looking at writing a document about small scale mining, okay? So you go to maybe a small scale mine within the Takwa community to ask them about some information about how they do their mining processes. And mind you, some of these small scale mining, they don't really have like official documents to back up some of the things that they talk about. So this is where your listening ability will be needed, because for all you know, most of their communication is going to be oral. So you need to know how to listen. You need to know how to record the information that you are being provided with, so that you can use that information in your technical write-up. And then you also have to build on your technical skills. You need to understand the technical nature of the content you are writing about. Okay, so for instance, I'm sorry if I'm mentioning so much of mining in my presentation, because that is my background, and I would like to provide as much information in that area as possible. So like, let's say you are writing about drilling and blasting, okay? We know that when we are talking about drilling and blasting, you need to know something about the drill rig. You need to know something about the blast design, okay? What is going to be the spacing or the bedding, or what type of explosives are you going to use? You need to understand the technical knowledge behind drilling and blasting in order for you to write a good technical document about that. Okay, or for instance, you are looking at let's say you are a metallurgical engineer, and then you need to write about maybe hydrometallurgy. What are some of the processes? What are the technical aspects of hydrometallurgy you need to include in your text? You yourself as a technical writer must understand the background in hydrometallurgy to be able to write about it. Okay. And then we also kind of look at another skill is writing. You need to ensure that your document is easy to read and it's also free of errors. It needs to be free of grammatical errors. It also needs to be free of spelling errors. Because mind you, you are trying to attract people to read your document. Okay, you are trying to attract people to use your document to solve a problem. So you need to make sure that you are producing good content. Okay, you need to also use the correct tone, style, and format. When we talk about tone, we can look at whether you are going to be writing in the passive voice or the active voice, or maybe in past tense or present tense. Okay, what is going to be your style? What is going to be the format of your writing? And then we also look at another skill is your document design. When we talk about document design, we are talking about how your document is going to be structured. So let's say, for instance, you want to publish your technical write-up or your technical paper in a particular journal or in a conference proceeding. Okay. And then all these societies or all these conference proceedings have a standard or a way of kind of like explaining, they have their format of how the document should look like. So you need to read all those instructions and make sure that you know how to edit your document to suit that format they are requesting you to present. Okay, so you need to be proficient in your formatting document, and you also need to be fluent. You also need to be fluent in your use of digital tools. Okay, you need to know how to use Excel and Word to create tables, to create charts, to create graphics, because all these things are also providing the reader information. It is a way of informing the reader about certain things. So we can use tables to kind of like to present your numerical data. You can use charts to kind of like show the trend or the correlation between two objects. You know, you can also include graphics like photographs in your documentation just to give additional information to the reader. So I've included this link over here, which outlines some of the tools that are in use in today's that could be helpful to you when you are writing your technical paper. So now we come to the characteristics of a technical paper. Okay, what are some of the things that I want to look out for, or how does a technical paper look like? So first of all, one thing that will stand out will be the title of the paper. Excuse me. One thing you can one thing that will stand out is the title of the paper, and then we will also look at like the abstract. So a technical paper has a title, an abstract, an introduction, the main body, the results, the conclusion, and the references. So for the next steps, we are going to tackle each of these sections individually. So when we look at the title, okay, the title is kind of like the very first impression you want to make on your reader. Okay, let's take for instance, before this session started, okay, Emmanuel introduced me, or Emmanuel kind of like gave you some information about who I am. Okay, or let's take a title like the president of Ghana. Okay, that title kind of like creates some impression on you. Okay, we do that, oh, this is the president. Okay, so you kind of like create an impression about the person. So in the same way, that's how your technical paper should also create an impression on the reader. Maybe the reader is interested in a particular field. Okay, so your title needs to stand out so that the reader can click on your document. In the, maybe you publish it on a website, so your document should stand out so that the reader will click on your document and read it. So it's like you are trying to create a first impression about what your title should be. So the title must be definite and concise, and it should indicate what is contained in the paper or what the reader should expect in your document. And it should also use as few words as possible, okay, to kind of describe the contents of the paper. So the titles should never contain abbreviations. It shouldn't contain any chemical formulations. It shouldn't contain any proprietary names. Okay, when we talk about proprietary names, let's say you have a topic like using I can, okay, let's say that a proprietary name, when we talk about Pepsodent, Pepsodent is a proprietary name, okay, but toothpaste is a more generic name. So let's say you want to investigate the effect of toothpaste on oral hygiene, or in what ways does using toothpaste or brushing your teeth contribute to oral hygiene. In your title, you shouldn't state that, oh, what are the effect of Pepsodent on oral hygiene. In this case, you are kind of like stating a proprietary name. Okay, and in a way, if you state it that way, you are kind of like advertising indirectly for Pepsodent. Okay, so you need to make sure that you are using generic names in your title. And you need to also avoid the use of jargons, okay, that very, very, very technical words in your title. It should be very simple for people to understand. So let's look at this example. Okay, what comes to mind when you read the topic, influence of social media on our lives? Okay, it's very, very broad. Okay, because we are talking about our life, what aspect of our lives? Or if we are talking about lives, are we talking about adult life? Are we talking about teenagers? Are we talking about toddlers? Okay, what group of people are you trying to investigate the influence of social media? Okay, so when you look at the second topic, we look at what the role of social media on the behavior of teens. So let's say I am a reader, okay, and I'm looking to investigate or know more about the effect of social media on maybe a toddler or maybe teenagers, okay. And let's say I Google that information I Google that information, and then these two topics come. I'm likely to click on this topic because it narrows down to what I am looking for. This is kind of very broad. Maybe this paper might be very good and might give me a lot of information, but it doesn't really specify what they are talking about in terms of lives. But this place, they are kind of specifying the behavior, okay? Because when you're talking about our lives, are we looking at what aspect of our lives? Are we looking at our behavior? Are we looking at our speech? Are we looking at relationship or what? But this topic kind of like narrows down or specifies the title. So I'll be more interested in reading this paper than this paper or this paper with this title. Okay. Another example is hard rock mining. Okay. Hard rock underground mining. So when we talk about underground mining, we know that we have a lot of different underground mining methods. We have block caving, we have sub-level caving, we have room and pillar. So what type of underground mining are you talking about? Okay, so maybe a more specific way or a more nicer way would be to maybe say a room and pillar hard rock mining. That is more specific, because if if I want to know more about room and pillar, then I know that this particular paper with this title will give me the information that I need. Okay, so can anyone also think about some ideas of topics or titles? You can unmute and then you can interact. What other titles can you think about? Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes,
Yes, we
please.
can. Yes, we
Yes,
can.
hello.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm trying to kind of like engage you. So like, what are some of the titles you can think about? I know I'm talking to many people from different backgrounds or different majors. So I like to know what can you think about? Think about a title.
Hello.
Hi, Veronica.
Okay, please, I can think of the importance of education on girls' child. Yeah.
The importance of education on what the girl child. Okay, so such a title is very, very specific. Okay, so you are looking at what importance of education, or even if when it comes to education, somebody can ask you what type of education. Okay, you can think about are you talking about how will I say it? What type of education? Maybe um, what are some of the examples of education? Can anyone think about something?
Um,
So maybe what you can talk about what personal hygiene education or something,
For
So
my
you're talking about hello? What did you say?
formal and informal.
Formal and informal education, because education is not only about what we learn in the classroom. Okay, so with what Veronica said, he said that we are looking at what the education on the girl child. So he has kind of specified the target group or the target people that he wants to educate, or she wants to educate. Okay, so you are looking at the girl child. Another person can look at education, influence of education on the boy child. Okay, so such a title is more like specific. So it will allow the reader to know what your paper is going to talk about. Okay. And now we move up to the abstract. So the abstract is just a summary of what your paper is about. Okay, we are looking at a condensed version of the paper. Maybe you have a 10-page paper, you have a 20-page paper. Okay, but before somebody will read that paper, they want to have an idea of what your paper is going to talk about. Your title will give them some information, but your abstract can also give further information on what your paper is about, or what are some of the findings you obtained after you did your research. Okay, so the abstract provides a brief summary of each of the main sections of the paper. So it contains information about your introduction. It contains some information about your materials and methods, your results, and your discussion. So mostly the abstract is just a single paragraph. Okay, and the words can be the words must not exceed 250 words. But this varies, because imagine having a technical paper, or maybe a technical report that is like 90 pages long, or maybe 100 pages long. You cannot summarize the entire report in just 250 words. You might need more information in the abstract, so that it will influence or attract the reader to read your document. Okay, so some of the rules that they have is that your abstract should be 10% of the total number of pages you have. So let's say if you have a 10-page document, okay, your abstract should be 1 page, okay, and the like. So it goes on and on. And then it's like your document should also be your abstract should also be designed to clearly summarize the paper. So other names for an abstract are summaries, or executive summaries, or executive abstracts. So sometimes when we take the technical report of mining industries, okay, let's say you go to Goldfields Ghana Limited, you go on their website and look at their technical reports from last year, so that their annual report in 2019, you are likely to see an executive summary. So when you see an executive summary, all that is telling you is that it is an abstract, or a condensed version of the entire report. So your abstract should state the principal objectives and scope of the investigation or the research you are conducting. And it should also talk about the methods that you employed in your paper, and it should also summarize the results and state the principal conclusions. So you imagine maybe your introduction is maybe 2 pages long. Your conclusion may be a paragraph or 1 page long, or your result might be like maybe 6 pages. You need to know how to highlight the key point in each of these sections, and summarize it in your abstract. So this is where your communication skills class comes in, because I remember when I was in UMAT, we did communication skills, and I remember we did summary. I don't know if you guys did the same thing, but I remember we did summary. So this is where you need to apply that skill. Okay, it was when I started writing a lot. It was when I started writing technical papers that I appreciated some of the things I learned in my communication skills class. Okay, and I believe some of you might have also taken courses in research methods, okay, because some of these information, I know you have come across them in your research methods class. So this is where you need to use your summary skills, okay, to summarize everything that you have written in your document. So maybe your 10-page document, your 20-page document, what are the key points? Okay, so those key points needs to be stated in your abstract. So we have two types of abstract. We have the informative abstract, and then the indicative or descriptive abstract. So like with what I mentioned earlier, we're looking more of the informative abstract, where you state the problem, you state the method you used to solve your problem, and then you look at the principal data and conclusions that you your research concluded on. Okay, so what are some of the findings from your research? So all these things must be included in an informative abstract. And some of these abstracts are mostly used for the sciences, engineering, and psychology reports. And it's mostly between 200 to 250 words. Okay. And then when we talk about indicative or descriptive abstract, we are kind of telling the reader what the reader should expect or what we included in our paper, but we don't really give details about what the findings were. Okay, so we will look at examples of all this so that it will enhance your understanding. So most of the indicative abstract is mostly used in the humanities and social science papers. Okay, so you need to find a way of attracting the reader. So maybe you can tell the reader that, oh, we use this method, but maybe it might not explain the method in detail. So that will kind of like lure the reader to go in further to read your document. And mostly these abstracts are between 50 to 100 words long. So this is an example of an informative abstract, okay? So I'm going to read this. It said that in recent years, high-profile fatalities involving school-age pedestrians crossing the street at designated crosswalk have elevated the issue of pedestrian safety, especially with respect to highly vulnerable pedestrians. So when you read this sentence highlighted in green, we know that the writer has identified the issue. They are looking at what pedestrian safety. They have what they have seen that there has been an increase in what the fatalities of school age pedestrians. So you see, they are very, very specific. Okay, we are talking about what school age pedestrian because we have different type of pedestrians. Okay, but they have narrowed it down to the type of pedestrians they are looking at. So when we continue, it says that while Section 136 of the Highway Traffic Act clearly outlines the requirement to stop at posted stop signs, little is known about the average driver's propensity to comply with this law. So so this particular section is kind of like giving more information to what the problem is about. So it's informing me as a reader that, okay, there is a law or there is a regulation governing pedestrian safety. So the reader here has indicated that in the abstract. And then it further goes on. It says that this study gained insight into this question by observing motorists as they approach a suburban stop sign, and then coding their behavior into three categories: full stop, rolling stop, or slow and go. So in this case, we can see that the writer has indicated the method they used in this study. So the method they used was what? Observation. Okay, they observed the motorist. Okay, so it's kind of like when you look at this particular abstract, it kind of tells you about a cause and effect. So if we have pedestrians dying from road accidents, okay, then by all means there is a cause for it. We have a careless driver who didn't stop. Okay, so they kind of like they know that, so they are monitoring or observing the causes of these fatalities in pedestrian safety. Okay, and then we also look at when we continue, it says that the study findings suggest that the majority of drivers do not comply with the requirement to stop at stop signs, with more than 1 in 4 drivers almost completely disregarding the stop sign. So this kind of tells you the conclusions or the results of the study. Okay, and then it further goes on to say that these findings suggest a need to solicit greater compliance rate amongst Ontario drivers with respect to Section 136 of the HTA. You get it? So it further goes on to kind of like recommend or give a brief implication of what this research is about. So if I'm a reader who is interested in pedestrian safety, this particular paper with this abstract will be of interest to me. And I'll further go on to read the information in there. We also look at an example of a descriptive or indicative abstract. Okay, so I wouldn't read everything, but we can see that from this line going, it says that the study presents recommendations for utilities and municipal government to improve customer understanding of how to use the smart meters effectively. So in this case, it's like the writer is just informing me as a reader that we've presented some recommendations, but he didn't specify what the recommendations are. So if I want to find out, then I need to read the paper to know what these recommendations are. So this is an example of an indicative or descriptive. So it just tells you what we have in our paper, but it doesn't really specify what the recommendation or what we are talking about. So in this case, it kind of like lures me as a reader to go in to read this particular document. Please, I hope I'm making sense. Are you here with me?
Yes, we are with you.
Okay.
Yes, we are
Okay.
with you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we are with you.
All right. So when we go to the next section. The next section is the introduction. Okay, so the introduction is where you give the reader some background information about the topic you are writing about. Okay, so when we started this presentation, I remember Emmanuel introduced me. Okay, he gave some background information about my education, about who I am. In the same way, when you are writing your technical paper, you need to inform your reader about the background or the topic you are writing about. So the background information, so the introduction provides enough background information to allow the reader to understand and evaluate the results of the technical paper. Okay, and then it also briefly and clearly states your purpose in writing the paper. Okay, because you need to have a purpose for writing a technical report or writing a technical paper. So you need to state that in clearly in your introduction so that when somebody is reading it, they understand that, okay, this particular writer has identified this problem and this is what he intends to solve, or this is how he intends to solve this issue. Okay, and then you also need to define any specialized terms or abbreviations that you intend to use. So it all comes down to the technicality or the technical area or the technical topic you are writing about. What are some of the terms used in the topic you are writing about? Let's say you're a computer science engineer and maybe you want to talk about machine learning. Okay, you need to let the reader understand what machine learning is about, or you need to let the reader understand the different types or the techniques of machine learning that are available. Okay, and if there are any abbreviations, you need to state that in your introduction so that the reader knows that, okay, maybe ABC stands for this, or XYZ stands for this. Okay, and then it is in the introduction that you can also cite similar publications to support your topic. Because mind you, you are not the first person writing about a specific topic. There might be other researchers or technical writers who might have conducted research in the area that you are writing about. So it is in the introduction that you can cite these other publications to kind of like support your topic or provide information to the reader that, okay, these other writers or these other authors have also conducted similar research. So if the reader is interested in knowing more, you kind of like provide them with an information of where to go or how to get access to that information, which was written by another author. Okay. So your introduction to clearly states the nature and scope of the problem you are investigating. So I remember earlier when Veronica talked about, gave an example of a title, the influence of education on the girl child. Okay, so in that way, she has defined her scope. She's looking at the girl child. Okay, so if anybody asks questions about maybe the boy child or any other participant or any other group outside what she has defined, she has the right to say that, okay, my research paper is whatever question you are asking me, it's out of scope of what I am looking at. Okay, so you need to define what you are trying to investigate. Okay, and then your introduction should also contain pertinent literature to familiarize the reader on the topic. Okay, that is where you kind of like cite other publications or cite other sources to help the reader to understand what you are talking about. And it will also state the method used for the research. It should also state the principal results and the principal conclusions that are suggested by the results. So your introduction is, I would say that this is where you are kind of like creating a bait for the reader so that the reader would kind of like read your entire paper. So my supervisor will say that, what is your story? Okay. What is motivating you to write about this topic? How is this topic how is this topic an issue in the society? Okay, so this is where you bring on board or you write a story behind what you are writing about. So we are going to look at an example over here. So I'm gonna stop share and share a different screen. Maybe just okay, so this is an example. So this particular paper is my first publication that I made after my undergrad studies. So I would like to acknowledge my supervisor, Prof. Teme and Dr. Bansa, for their help in coming up with this particular write-up. So when you look at it, when you look at the title, so this is an example of a technical paper, okay? So when you look at the title, it says that reclamation of non-acid generating and potential acid generating waste rock dams.
Russell.
You get it? So in a way, it gives you an idea of what the writer or what I intend to talk about in this particular paper. So initially, when I was coming up with this topic, my first topic was what? Reclamation of waste dams. Okay, my topic initially was what? Reclamation of waste dams. But with such a topic or with such a title, somebody would ask, oh, are you talking about refuse dumps? Or what type of dams are you talking about? So you need to be very, very specific. So in this case, I identified that I'm looking at what? Waste rock dams. Okay. And then we look at the abstract. So the abstract is just a paragraph. Okay. So I kind of like give an idea. So I said that what this paper considers the reclamation of this, that. So I am informing the reader of what I am talking about, and I'm defining my scope of study. Okay. So when we look at the introduction, we look at what you said that what mining activities often result in removal of wildlife habitat and native vegetation. To maintain ecological balance and ensure sustainability, lands disturbed by mining activities are restored to their pre-mining state as much as possible, or to an alternative and acceptable post-mining condition to improve the social economic lives of the landowners. So in this case, in a way, I have kind of like defined the scope of my studies. I'm looking at reclamation. I'm looking at how mining lands can be restored into use so that the people in the community can still use the land after mining has kind of like completed or mining has stopped. Okay, so I've kind of like defined what I want in here in my introduction. And then when we look at this, this is a citation, okay? So this is where I include information from other authors or other researchers to kind of like support the topic or the area I am talking about. So when you look at all these are also another citation. This is also another citation. So all these citations are just to help me to build a point or to support the topics I am writing about. Okay, so and finally at the end of the introduction, I state that what this paper reports the procedure adopted for reclaiming 3 waste rock dams at Golden Star Resources Limited, Wasamai. Okay, so in a way, I'm informing the reader that I looked at what 3 waste rock dams which are located at Golden Star Resources. So if somebody wants to perform a similar research, they know where to find information. Or maybe if somebody wants to verify this research, they know where to get the information from. So I further stated that what it is located in the western region of Ghana. Okay, and then said reconciliation of the process with regulatory requirements was also conducted to determine compliance. I know I've not read through the entire thing, but in here, when I talk about reconciliation, I'm stating the methods that I used for this particular research, okay? So it means that I have some data available and I have another data. So I'm comparing these 2 data sets to see how they correlate with each other, okay? So it is also a method or a research method that you can use to produce results, okay? So this is an example of how an introduction looks like. So you define your scope, you state the methodology that you used. You can also support your introduction with further information from other authors. And then you also state the method and the type of methods you used in your research. Okay, so we'll go back to the slide here. Okay, let me just share my desktop. So now I have to start all over again. So this is where we got to. So I showed you an example of what the introduction should look like. Then the next section in a technical writing is the main body or the methodology, or some people can also name it materials and methods. Okay, so I describe this I describe this section as giving the recipe to your research. Okay, let's say maybe you are writing about how to prepare a light soup. Okay, by all means, you need to give the steps of how to prepare light soup. You need to maybe cut your meat this way. You need to cut it in this particular size. You need to use maybe ginger or onion or something to kind of like season it. Okay, so you give information to the reader of how to go about the process. Okay, so this section must provide full details of the method used in the research. Okay, and then it also must be, it has to be clear enough to allow the reader to repeat the process to obtain the same or similar results. So as I mentioned earlier, technical paper or a technical paper is what you are publishing, or you are providing information about a research that you have conducted. Okay, so somebody should take your paper and be able to repeat the same process to obtain the same result. So this is where you need to answer questions of how and how much. Okay, so how much should I use? How much of this should I use? Okay, let's say when we look at maybe a chemical reaction, how much, I remember like in my high school, we did a lot of titration. Okay, so how much acid should you use to dilute, to dilute maybe an amount of base to get a neutral solution. Okay, so your methodology should kind of explain or give information about what to do. Okay, so you are going to look at an example from the paper I showed you earlier. So in this case, when we come back here, we look at, so in my paper, I titled this section as materials and method used. Okay, so I stated that what I'm looking at 3 waste dumps, and I further went ahead to name the waste dump Subisu East, waste dump 1 West, waste dump 1 East. Okay, and then I also buttressed or gave further information by including figures. So this figure will give the reader an information of where to locate waste dump 1. Okay, this figure will also give an information to the reader of where to locate Subisu East waste dump. Okay, so when you look at this particular diagram, I've included I've labeled the different sections. Okay, I've also included a legend to help the reader understand the different symbols, or the different the different symbols that have been used in this particular diagram. I've also included the northings and the eastings. So let's say if somebody, maybe somebody in the geometric department wants to locate this particular waste dump, he can take derive information from the northings and the eastings to locate the exact to locate this waste dump. Okay, and then so I further went to explain that waste dump one is that have been completely reclaimed are considered in this study. So in a way, I have defined my study area. I am informing the reader that this is the number of waste dump I am investigating, or the number of waste dump that I am studying in this particular in this particular research. So he said that what the Subrisu East waste dump is located at Benso, this, that. So I'm just giving the reader more information, okay? And then when we come down here, I kind of give information on the procedure for waste dump reclamation. Okay, so there is a procedure. So I kind of like explain and give enough information about what to do. Okay, so when we come here, we look at some of the BEM height. Okay, the BEM height should be 8 to 10 meters. The rehabilitation angle should be 20 degrees. So all this information is just advising the reader on suppose the reader wants to reclaim a waste dump. I have provided the reader some information on how to go about it, or some of the things to look out for. Okay, so the main body, or the methodology section, can have several subsections. Okay, so we have subsection 2.1, which talks about the procedure. And then section 2.2 talks about reclamation at Subrisu East Waste Dump. So you kind of like give information, and then you always need to use, if you can use graphics, just use graphics to help with your explanation, because a picture is worth what, 1,000 words, right? That's what they say, right? So you always need to include diagrams and pictures in there, and you need to explain. So when we look at this PAG and NAG, these are abbreviations. So what do they mean? Okay, so you need to explain that in your text. Okay, so here I defined it what non-acid generating, and then I abbreviate it as NAG. Okay, so when the reader gets here and see this abbreviation, he knows what I'm talking about. Okay, so you always need to explain or jargons, or you need to explain certain names in your text, so that it will enhance the reader's understanding. Okay, because that is your goal as a technical writer. You just want people to understand your work. Okay, so sometimes let's say you are writing a proposal so that you can get funding to perform a particular research. Okay, here is the case. So your audience are people who have money. Okay, so you need to make sure that your proposal is as clear as possible, so that you can receive the funds or the money that you need to conduct the research. Okay, so your point or your goal as a technical writer is to make sure that your paper or your document is clear and understandable. Okay, so this is an example of the methodology. So I further give explanations, and then we come to and we have another section. So your methodology, your methodological or your method section can have as many subsections as possible. Okay, so this is where your document design comes in. So how many sections do I want in this particular, or how many subsections do I need in these sections? And in each of the subsections, what am I going to talk about? So you need to plan all these things, okay? So that we'll go back to our PowerPoint here. Okay, so at least you've seen an example of how the main body, or how the methodology or the materials and methods sections is written out. So as I mentioned earlier, always put it at the back of your mind. This is where you are giving the recipe of your research, okay? So we move on to the next section. What is happening? Which is your result. Okay, so your result is kind of like the very core of your paper, because this is the reason why, or this is the motivation why you so this is where you got the motivation to do, you to perform or to conduct your research. And this is where the reader will be very, very interested in. They want to see, okay, you applied this method to solve this problem, so what did you get? Okay, what did you come up with after your research? Okay, so you said that the result presents the data obtained after implementation of the method described in the previous section. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this is the core of your paper. And then this is where you need to ensure that you are organizing your result as clearly and as you need to have like a good representation of your data. Because like when you take, like, let's say a chemical reaction, or you take let's say a titration experiment, you might have conducted a lot of you might have conducted several titrations. Okay, the reader is not interested to know all the data sets you obtained in the lab. You need to make sure that you summarize your data in the form of a table or a graph or a photograph, okay, to inform the reader that this is what you obtained after you performed this and this experiment. Because you're going to get a lot of data. We don't need all that information in your technical paper, okay? So this is another quote which says that the compulsion to include everything, leaving nothing out, does not prove that one has unlimited information. It proves that one lacks discrimination. So you as a technical writer need to know which information to include and how well should I present that information so that my reader can understand what I'm trying to arrive at, or the result that I arrived at. Okay, so it says that data can be represented in drawings, in diagrams, photographs, illustrations, bar charts, flow charts, and the like. So this is where your fluency with digital tools comes in, as we described earlier in the skills needed for technical writing. So this is where you need to know how to use Excel to produce pie charts. This is where you need to know how to use Word to edit your photograph so that people can see and understand your work. So I'm going to, let's go back to the paper and look at an example from the paper. Okay, so with this particular paper, the way I presented my result is in the form of a photograph. Okay, so I ensured that I'm providing enough information to the reader as possible, like I'm providing as much information as possible. Okay, so when we are talking about your result, one thing you need to know is that when it comes to photographs, your whatever is contained in the photograph or whatever is contained in the image should be clear so that the reader will understand what you are showing them. And you also need to provide a clear title or a clear label to the photograph. So in this case, I specify that what maize germination at waste dump 1 West. Okay, so somebody can also name this like what plantation or germination at waste dump 1 West. So germination of what? Okay, you are trying to clear as much ambiguity as possible. So in this case, I specify that what you are looking at is maize germination. Okay, and then when you look at here, when you see here, we can see that there is a worker who is planting some grass. What type of grass is he planting? So I specify here that we are planting what vetiver grassing. Okay, so you need to, when you are presenting your results, you need to make sure that you are clearly defining the things you are including in your results. And then you also want to make sure that you make mention of your figures in the text. Okay, so you give a brief description of what the diagram or what the photograph is talking about, and then you further buttress it or inform the reader that they should look at this and this figure to give them more information. So you always need to state the figures in your text, okay, before you show, you include the figure in your results. I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope you understand what I mean. What I'm trying to say is that before you show before the reader gets to the photograph, they might have some knowledge of what this photograph is talking about from the text. So you can briefly describe the diagram, or you can briefly describe the information in the material. Okay, so with this particular research, we looked at, so as I mentioned earlier, I presented my result in the form of images or photographs. Okay, let's look at another paper. So this is another paper that I wrote with my colleague Richard Amako, and this year. Okay, so in this particular paper, we also presented some information in the form of tables. Okay, so there are a lot of rules and regulations around editing tables and other things. You get it? So when we look at this, we label it what table one. We give it a title. We give it a label. Okay, we are saying that we are informing the reader that this table is talking about degrees of injuries. Then we further go down and what explain everything. You need to make sure that things are in proper alignment. Okay, let me show you another results table. So this is also another table. Okay, so like with this abbreviation, I know because you've not read the text, you'll be wondering what is DLR or what is NDLR. But if we have read, all these terminologies have been explained in the text. Okay, so if you should read the text, you'll be able to understand what these abbreviations mean. So you see, this is a way of what presenting your result. Okay, so we look at different sections. So you need to make sure that, so this is where you need to be proficient in formatting. Okay, knowing how to present this document. Okay, so this arrow is also giving further information to the reader that there is a downward trend in this particular numbering. Okay, so you look at all these things. So it's just giving the reader information. You are summarizing your results. Okay, and then we can also look at, so these are examples of tables. Okay, let's look at an example of a pie chart, or maybe a graph. I think it's up here. Okay, so this is an example of organizing your data as a pie chart. Okay, so this is where you need to, this is where your formatting skills comes in. I'll repeat that over and over again. You need to know how to edit. You need to know how to present your information. You need to know how to use Excel to produce these results. Okay, so when you look at this particular pie chart, you have provided enough information to the reader that, okay, this particular section means powered haulage, and I'm showing the percentage of powered haulage accidents. Okay, when you look at the figure, this figure is talking about the most frequent accident between 2008 and 2017. Okay, so it's informing that, okay, I'm talking about different types of accidents, and I label all the different accidents and the percentage that we have recorded over this study period. Okay, so apart from labeling this information, I've also edited the document such that even if it is printed in black and white, the reader will still know that this particular um, pie chart or this particular section is different from this particular section, or this section is talking about something different from this section. So one thing that I would advise is that whenever you are publishing or including pie chart or graphs in your technical writing, make sure that when it is printed in black and white, the reader can still understand or identify what you are trying to explain in there. Because mind you, this one was created in color, but maybe some publication industries might not print your presentation in color. It might be printed out in black and white. So you need to edit your document so that it can still be understood even in black and white. And I also show you an example of a graph. Okay, so when we talk about graph, you need to make sure that you label your axis. Okay, your X and Y axis need to be clearly labeled. it needs to be clearly defined so that the reader knows what you are talking about. If you need to include units in there, you need to include the units. Maybe you're looking at millions of dollars, okay? You need to include all those units to provide information to the reader. Okay, so when you look at all these things, when you look at this graph, you can see that there's a difference in the symbols that have been used. Okay, so even though it is printed in black and white, the reader is still able to understand what you are trying to explain here. Okay, so let's continue in here. I hope you are following along. Are you still with, are you here with me? I hope I'm not talking to myself.
Yes, please.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay.
Party.
Okay, so this is an image showing underground and both surface and underground mining. Okay, who can tell me what is wrong with this image? Any ideas? Please, I need
Please
your
put up.
answers.
Please put up.
I think the details are blurred.
Okay. And what else? What else can you say about the diagram or the image? Okay, so like was
I
it
can see
Ernest?
that the tests are scattered and then the tests are scattered and then they are not clearly visible.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, all that you have said is right. Okay. So when we look at this particular image, you see it's the same image, okay, but there are a lot of errors with it. So first
Please.
of all, you might have included this image. Could you mute your mic, please, Emmanuel? So like when you look at this particular diagram, maybe you might have included this diagram to inform the reader of the different infrastructure in underground mining or in surface mining. But you see that the image size is too small that it cannot even read the text that are presented in here. And you realize here that when you when you kind of like enlarge the image, the writings are still blurred, you know, like the pixels are not right. You get it? So you need to make sure that you are presenting a good and accurate or a very sharp image. And then when we look at this particular one, we realize that the image has been distorted. Okay, so it looks so straight, which doesn't really show you the actual information that you want the reader to obtain from this. Okay, so when you look at the next image, this is this is a perfect example of the image to include in your in your text. Okay, so here the reader can read that, okay, this is a ramp, this is a shaft, a ventilation shaft, this is this is that. Okay, so mostly if you have images that have labels on them, you need to make sure that you enlarge them so that the reader can read what has been labeled on the diagram. Okay, and then the final section or one of the section is the conclusion. So the conclusion states the findings or the outcome of the research. Okay, this is where you inform the reader, or the reader gets to know whether the objectives you stated in your introduction have been achieved. Okay, so the introduction and the conclusion should always be linked. Okay, what did you want to achieve in your introduction? And what did you want to do in your introduction, and what did you achieve in your conclusion? So this particular or these two links must be clearly defined in your paper. Okay, and then the conclusion also summarizes the principles, relationship, and generalizations given solely by the results of the work. Okay, so here you don't conclude, you don't use another person's conclusion for your technical paper. You need to conclude based on the result that you obtained from your research. Okay, don't use another person's conclusion to conclude your technical paper. And then you also need to point out any correlation or lack of correlation in the results. One thing I also want to point out is that sometimes research doesn't go as we plan. Maybe you wanted to investigate that, or maybe 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Okay, but at the end of the results, it turned out that the result you obtained was that 1 + 1 was equal to 0.5. So you as a technical writer must let the reader know why you obtained that result, or what might have gone wrong with the research. Okay. So sometimes things don't go as planned. So in a way, you need to know how to kind of like correlate the result that you had with the uh, in your conclusion. You correlate it with what you wanted to obtain in the initial, or the objectives of your research. And then you say that your results also your conclusion show the results, and the conclusions show how the results and interpretations agree with or disagree with previously published work in the area. Okay. So, and then we also come to the references. So in your reference, you are providing the reader information about where you got certain facts or certain ideas that you used in your technical write-up. Okay, so where did you obtain this information? And as I mentioned earlier, a technical paper should help the reader to reproduce or conduct the same research that you conducted and obtain the same result, or the same or similar results. Okay, so here is the case where whatever items you listed, or whatever sources of information you listed, needs to be clearly identified in your text, so that it will provide the reader information about where to go to obtain the information that you used in your research. Okay, so the reference list is the source of information used in the technical paper. Okay, so any items that include direct quotations or statements which are paraphrased, or any statements that are not generally accepted as true, all this information needs to be cited, or all this information needs to be referenced. So when you notice in my presentation, I included some direct quotations, and I included the names and sometimes the year of that quotation. Okay. And then you also want to make sure that you are listing published references. Okay. Don't list unpublished references, or references or documents that is not easily accessible to the public. Okay, so when we talk about published reference, we are talking about technical papers that have been published on maybe a particular research platform, okay, which might have a URL or a DOI that the reader can easily identify or can easily access at any point in time. And then you also need to ensure that all the references, all your in-text references are listed in the reference sections. So if you use maybe 3 references in your documentation, at the end, in your reference sections, you need to have 3 references in your documentation. Okay. And then we also have the different referencing styles. I know time is not on our side, so I'm just going to brush through this quickly. We have different references style. We have the name and year system, which is the Harvard system. And I know that this is what UMass uses a lot. So this is the most popular one. So an example is this. So you name write the surnames of the authors, and then the year that they published this particular information. And then we also have the alphabet number system. Okay, so the alphabet number system, it is a modification of the name and year system. I know when it comes to references, there are a lot of technicalities, or there are a lot of information about references. I'm just giving you a concise review, or a concise information. Okay, so let's say that an example of the number system is that you replace your references with numbers in your text. Okay, and then we also have citation order system. So that one, you also your references are identified as numbers in your text. Okay, in the order in which they appear. Okay, so I'll show you an example of that in this paper. So when you look at this paper that I showed you earlier, when you look at this, you see that these are all references, okay? So these are references in the square brackets. So this style of referencing is called the Vancouver style, okay? So we have different types of reference styles, okay? So when you click on it, it will send me directly to my reference, and then it will show me that this is my reference, okay? So when you look at this, I provide information about the author, the year in which the publication was published, the title of that technical paper, and then the journal that it was published in. And I also further give information about the DOI, which is the Digital Object Identifier. So when I click on this link, it should send me directly to the image, or it should send me directly to the technical paper that I cited in my work, okay? So we have different ways of citing different things. There's a way to write a reference for books. There's a way to write a reference for web pages. There's a way to write references for journal articles, okay? And I know that most of you might have covered this in your research methods class, okay? So as I mentioned earlier, referencing is a lot. It's a whole new topic on its own. So I'm just giving you a summarized version of what references, the different references style that we have in there. Okay. So when we come back here, we also recognize, so these are the basic reference styles that we have. Based on this, we also have different other. So like when I mentioned, what I showed you earlier is the Vancouver style of referencing, which uses the citation order system. So as you go along and you reference, it numbers all your references in like numerically. So like 1, 2, 3, you know, that kind of sequence. And then of late, we also have reference software. We have Mendeley. Mendeley is what I use to manage my references. Okay, we also have EndNote, EasyBabe, Site for Me. And I've also included a link that you can use to access the different reference management softwares out there. Okay, so when you Google this information in there, it will take you and help you to understand the different or how to use these softwares. Okay, so now we come to ideas on what to write. Okay, so let's say right now you are in your final year, you're about to do your final project, and maybe you have it at the back of your mind, or you want to know maybe after your project you have plans to publish that information in the future. So what are some of the ideas you want to what can I write about? You want to know what you want to write about. So one thing will be a literature review. When you talk about literature review, you're talking about reading other technical papers by other authors to know what they have talked about in the past. So one area that you can get ideas is from the future work. You know, some technical writers indicate a future work. So maybe you can look at the future work they indicated or stated in their technical paper, and then you can use that as an idea to write a technical paper in that area. Or sometimes you can also look at using maybe there's a particular topic. I remember my time, the popular topic was examination of tools, you know, like tools in drill and blast, you know. So maybe you can look at using, you can investigate the formation of tools in maybe Anglo Gold Ashanti. Another person can also look at the formation of tools in maybe Goldfields Ghana Limited. Okay, they can be the same topic, but your study area is different. Okay, and then another area you can also get information is from your academic supervisor. You can have you can have like an interactive conversation, and you know, or your academic supervisor might be experienced in your area, so he might even give you some of the latest technologies out there, or what are some of the gaps in research in mining or in mineral engineering that you can talk about or you can write about. Okay, you can also look at the internet, especially at the mining news. Okay, you can look at what are the trending technologies in mining. Of late, we know that we are using a lot of drones in the mining industry. Okay, you can write a topic, or you can write a technical paper about the use of drones in mining and how it is helping the mining industry. Okay, you can also look at the annual report of mining companies, because some of them state some of the new technologies that they are using on their site. Okay, so all this information will help you to get some ideas on what to write. Another thing that I also say is that right now a lot of people are also looking at how they can apply AI in mining. So that is also another area that you can look at for what is AI, what is artificial intelligence, and how is it being applied in the mining industry. Okay, so these are some of the sources. There might be many sources, but this is what I could think of at the time. Okay, so there can be more, and then you can include more. Okay, so after you have an idea of what do you want to write about. Okay, where do you want to publish your technical paper? You see, so some of the one of the main things will be your awesome. Okay, you are it's a student chapter of awesome, so I know awesome hold conferences. Okay, so maybe at a point in time, if you, let's say you register as a member, they might give you information on when they are going to have a conference, or some date or information about an upcoming conference, so that you can submit an abstract which you can further continue to write the technical paper and present. Okay, so these are some of the areas. So for me, my very first publication, it was a conference proceedings, and I presented it at the Biennial International Mining and Mineral Conference at UMAT. Okay, and then we also have the Ghana Mining Journal. We also have the South African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy. We also have the Society of Mining, Metallurgy and Exploration. Currently, I'm a student member of this society, and last year I was able to present a technical paper about mine accidents. Okay, the different mine accidents in terms of safety in the mining industry. So these are some of the areas. So I included all these links, so you can click on it and then go to their website and get some information about what all these societies is about. And then you can also plan of becoming a member of any of these society, because as a technical writer, it is good to be part of a professional society. Okay. So finally, how do you improve on your technical writing skills? You need to read a lot. You need to read a lot of technical papers and books. Okay. You need to also create a process. You need to outline what you want to write in each of the sections. So when you take the introduction, what do I want to talk about here? When I take the methodology, what information should I include in there? Okay. And you should also seek feedback. When you write your document, okay, you should also give your document to somebody who is not in your field of study to see if they understand what you have written. So in that way, if they give you a positive feedback, you can improve on your writing skills from time to time. And you can also take a course in technical writing. Okay, and then always look out for courses that will give you one-to-one feedback. And you also need to make sure that you practice a lot. Okay, just repeat, repeat, and repeat. So I would say that right now I wouldn't call myself as an expert in writing, but these are some of the things that you can do to improve your technical writing skills. I always say that if you are a technical writer, and to be able to write good technical documents, you yourself, yeah, you as a technical writer, you need to be a library of information. Okay, so you need to read a lot of technical papers. So I believe that after this session, you can go ahead and maybe take one technical paper and read and see if you can identify all these different sections or all these different features we have described in this webinar. So that can be a starting point, okay? And yeah, so this brings us to the end of this webinar. If you have any questions, so this is a time where we can have a lot of question and answer sessions. And please let me know any concerns. I know some of you here are more experienced than myself, and you might also have some information. So I also like you to contribute to the knowledge that I have shared over here. And these are the references that I use, some of the references that I use to compile this presentation. So thank you so much for listening to me. So I'll turn it over to the facilitator or the moderator, and then we can have some question and answer session.
Yeah, thank you very, very, very much, Ms. Judith, for the detailed and insightful presentation. It's really imparted some knowledge in us. We are very, very grateful. Yeah, so to you, lovely people, if you have any questions, any contributions, or any input, you could just place them in the comment section, then we'll just look into it real quickly. So we'll be ready to take our first question from the comment section. Anyone?
I see two participants have raised their hand. I don't know
Okay.
who those are. You can unmute and speak if you have a question.
Yeah. Okay. So I think
Mr. Entry?
Hello, madam.
Yes, hello.
Yes, madam. My name is Ernest.
Okay, hi, Ernest. What is your question?
Madam, I want to know that. Yeah, my question is that the technical paper, does it necessarily must have a solution in it in the conclusion part? Because you stated that it should have a clearly stated conclusion and a clearly stated problem. So I wanted to know if it must contain a solution, or maybe you are making some recommendations of somebody's work in your conclusion.
So your solution is going to be in the results section. That is where your solution is going to be. Okay, so as I stated earlier, the reason why you are writing a technical paper is you've identified a problem, okay, and you've used a method to try to find an answer to that problem. So your conclusion is a summary of your results. So after you use the methodology that you described, what results did you get? Okay, and what interpretations do you make out of the result? You get it? So your conclusion is summarizing your result, which is your solution. Does that answer your question?
Okay, madam.
So, you know, like, so your result is the solution to the problem. Okay, so that is where you inform the reader about the solution you obtained. And then the conclusion is like you interpret your result, or you make inferences. So based on, let's say, okay, so I did an experiment that 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Okay, so my solution is what? 2. So what does that 2 mean? Okay, so this is where you describe that in your solution, what your results mean. So sometimes, I also want to mention that sometimes we also have a section we call the discussion. So the discussion is like a section that kind of interprets your result. You know, it helps the reader to understand the results that you are getting. Because most of the times, maybe what you are investigating might be numbers. So what do those numbers mean? Okay, so like with the, some of the publications, so let me share this with you quickly. So when we look at this particular publication, okay, the results here. This is a big document, so it's hard to scroll down. Okay. So when we look at this particular table, okay, this table means something. It means something, but in actual fact, we've presented our information in the form of numbers, but this particular numbers means something. So this is where you need to explain and allow the reader to understand that, okay, this is what these numbers mean. So briefly, if I want to explain this to you, we are looking at what the effects of, so this particular paper, we're looking at what causes accident in the mining industry. Okay, so we are looking at experience on the current job. We are looking at the experience of the miner. Okay, so we categorize the experience of the miners into different bins. So we look at miners who have 0 to 1 year of experience. We look at miners with 1 to 3 years of experience. So all these are numbers, but it means something. So in your conclusion or in your discussion section, you need to interpret what this result mean. Okay, so when you look at this, you can see that, okay, when we look at the experience, we are trying to say that miners, the more experienced you are on a particular job, the less likely you are to experience an accident, because you know the in and out of the job. Okay, you know what can cause accident and what cannot. So when you look at it, we see that miners with 0 to 1 years of experience have a very high odds ratio. So this odds ratio has been explained in the text. I wouldn't want to go so much in details, but I'm trying to let you understand that whatever we are explaining here, even though it is represented as numbers, it has a meaning to it. Okay, so your results, so sometimes people combine the result and the discussion section together. Other people also separate it. So your discussion is kind of like giving interpretation to what your results mean, because most of the times your result might be numerical. Okay, so you need to further explain what that result mean. So in this case, I'm trying to inform the reader that a miner with 0 to 1 year of experience has a higher chance of experiencing a particular type of injury in the mining industry. Does that answer your question, Ernest?
Yes, madam.
Okay.
Yes, madam.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. It's Henry here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
First of all, let me thank you very much for the presentation. I know I contacted you to do this and you didn't blink, and then you said you'll do it. So
yeah, thank you so much
very much. Unfortunately, I was having network problems, so I was going back and forth, but I've listened to some of it, very encouraging, and I hope all the students will learn lessons from what you've presented. I just want to make a contribution. There have been instances where students or even professionals have their technical papers declined by some of these professional organizations, such as the OSM, SMEs, and so on. And I would like to encourage you not to be disappointed when you are declined for the first time or even the second time. I know in my instance, I wrote my first paper with the head of mining engineering department at Colorado School of Mines. So it was a joint paper, and it allowed me to learn the insights on how to write technical papers. We published it in the SME. So I encourage you also to write with your lecturers and professors on the various projects that you do, and that will really help you understand the dynamics and the technicality of, or the technical details that go into these papers. So once again, thank you very much. And we hope to have more of these interactions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Entry. Yeah, I'm also reading a question here in the comments. He said that, please, do we need to have any experience before we can write about any topic or problem? So what I would say is that right now, as you are learning, or right now that you are in school, learning about mining engineering, you are getting the experience about mining engineering. So you should be able to write about any topic in the area of mining engineering, or in the topic of maybe computer science engineering or something. You get my point. So right now you are getting experience, and you can also further get more experience by reading other technical papers. Okay, so when we talk about mining, we know that we have different fields in mining. We have a rock fragmentation field, we have mine planning, we have mining production, we have optimization or operations research, You get my point? So right now, you as a student, you are actually getting experience on the topic. So when you talk about drill and blast, what are some of the courses you've taken in drill and blast throughout your study as a mining engineer, or throughout your study as a student in a particular major or a particular study? All these ones can give you information, and provide you with information on the particular topic. So as you are learning, as you are getting to know all these things, you are actually gaining experience. So yes, you do have an experience. You say that, please, do we need to have any experience? And one thing I also say is that you might need experience in writing. Okay, I know that at least some of you might have done internships, okay? And then when you came back, you were required to write a report. So you wrote a report about what you did during your internship. That is an experience of technical writing, okay? And or maybe in your research method class, you might be required to write about a particular topic, okay? So all that I'll say is that you need to know how to write and write a good paper. So one of the experience you need to have is that you need technical knowledge, which you are gaining as a student, and you also need to gain writing skills, okay, which will come through your final project work or even your assignment, okay? Sometimes you are given assignment, or maybe you are supposed to write a report about something. So all these projects or all these assignments are giving you experience about technical writing. Does that answer your question, Barry? Hello, Barry. Okay, any other question? I hope that answers your
Hello.
question. Okay,
Hello,
thank you,
Isaac.
Barry.
Isaac here.
Yeah, Isaac.
So it's not a question, it's probably more a contribution than a question.
Okay.
I think one of the ways to build experience is to start writing. So one of the key components of a paper, technical paper, is the literature review, where you are scanning what others have already done to build on that, right? So you will scan all other documents or papers and publications around that subject you want to talk about, and then summarize all of that into a literature review to find out where are the gaps where I can also fill in terms of paper or in terms of knowledge. Because when you write a technical paper, many people who read technical papers are not reading because they're just technical papers. They're looking for information. They're looking to build on what others have done and learn from what others have done. So if you combine a summary of other people's papers and then determine what the gap is, it's a really, really important aspect of building that experience of writing. So I would suggest to most of you, and I had a chat with a couple of Ozam guys yesterday around innovation and that kind of thing. But it's important to just take maybe 10 papers, 15 papers around a subject that you are interested in, AI, for instance, or mine optimization, mine planning, and then synthesize all the information that you find in these 10 papers into a paragraph, into 3 paragraphs, and find out what is there in this set of papers that is a gap that one needs to provide information for. And that usually would lead you to writing about something. Because if you are not adding to knowledge, usually that paper is rejected. And Henry alluded to that a while ago. Most of the papers that are rejected may be because they are not contributing anything to knowledge. The quality of writing is terrible, or they have completely deviated from the theme that was provided. So you were asked to write about banana and you wrote about plantain. They may look the same, but they are not the same. So, but you could write about plantain and explain how it's linked to banana and still get your paper published. So it's just those dynamics of how to summarize people's work that they've done. And I think that is really, really an important thing for writing a paper. I take a paper, I read the literature review, is talking nonsense, I put it away because the conclusion is likely to be nothing as well. And the other thing I might mention is that the abstract is a very, very important thing. The abstract is a summary of the paper. In some of the things I do, you have to review over 100 papers just on one topic. I'm not going to read all the papers. I'm just going to read the abstract. And if they tell me nothing, I will not touch the paper. And remember, the more people read your paper, the more they cite it, and the more people will come back to you and ask questions and want to know more. So I think one good exercise each of you could put your hands to, and I think universities should actually push this activity, is to take a couple of papers and do a literature review and submit to a supervisor, a lecturer, to review it for you. It's really, really important exercise. If you don't learn how to review literature, you will do something which others have already done. And therefore you have not added any new knowledge to the body of industry or the knowledge of industry that we're trying to all add to. Even if you do an analysis of mind productivity, you want to find out, okay, someone did this in Ohio. Let me try it in Wasamenfi. Okay. And then you try the same thing, but they're not the same jurisdiction. So your new knowledge is the fact that you've added the information at Wasamenfi to this body of knowledge. But if you do it haphazardly and it does not build on what has been done already, you've limited your paper and you don't get very good results for it. So of course, time won't allow to see a lot more, but that's my little sense.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Yeah, this explains a lot. And I also I found another question. Emmanuel Obin is asking that can the introduction include a brief history? Yes, the introduction can include a brief history about a particular topic. So as I mentioned earlier, we are giving the reader a background into the topic. So if it's going to be history, you need to include some information, but don't write too much of the history. Always make sure that you are within the scope that you have defined for your paper. Don't include so much unnecessary information. Okay, so just a brief history or just a brief background. And then when you talk about citing papers, you need to also make sure that you are citing current papers. Okay, at least cite papers within the last 10 years. Okay, or maybe there might be some topics that maybe there aren't a lot of information out there, or there aren't a lot of publication, or maybe the latest publication was maybe in the 1990s. It will be okay to cite those ones. But if it is a topic that is much more current, a lot of people might have written about it in the past decade. So just cite papers that are more current. So let's say if you are looking to write a paper and get it published in maybe 2021, okay, you need to be looking at citing research that has been done in this year, some of the papers that have been done, research that have been done this year, or maybe in 2019, okay, in the last 10 years. At least just limit yourself to the last 10 years. If you don't find anything within that, then you can expand and include other information from other years. Okay, so yes, it is okay to include a brief history, but always make sure that you are within the scope you have defined for your paper. I hope that answers your question, Emmanuel.
Yes. Can I come in to maybe talk a little bit about what Isaac, in fact, discussed?
Yes.
Isaac makes a very important point. And just a few days ago, I had a call from a policeman from the president's office that he wanted to buy my book. And then I tried to find out why a policeman wants to buy a book on mining. According to him, when I made my presentation at Alumat last year, it was published in a newspaper in Ghana. And then he read about artificial intelligence. So it attracted him, and he did a lot of reading on artificial intelligence. Now, all the readings he did was on mining, application of artificial intelligence to mining projects. But he was able to capture that to figure out how it can apply to the security service. And that was his main interest. So in his analysis, he's read about 7 papers on mining. He's identified certain gaps that he thinks, or certain areas that he thinks can apply to the security services. And then through that, he's now projecting himself to do a master's degree in specializing in artificial intelligence so that he can bring it back to Ghana. So what Isaac was saying is very important. Those of you doing mineral processing, surveying, geotechnical, and so on, those are the things that you can do. Look at the various initiatives that have been written about, and then see areas that you think you can capture to do more research and write about. And I say this because when we are employing, those of you who have read my book, we look at your final year projects. So for instance, if I need somebody with expertise in fragmentation, and your thesis or your project work is on drill and blast or something to do with fragmentation, it attracts me straight away to explore you further. And you have a competitive advantage over somebody who have just done general drill and blast or general mining engineering as an instance. So take this seriously, and I think it will really help you both in your career development and positioning yourself for future jobs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Nchi. So we have a very last question. Time is not on our side, but I just want to take the very last question that I see here. It says, what is the difference between a technical essay and technical writing? And what comes into a technical essay? Isaac, could you answer that? Do you have some ideas or contributions to that question?
So a technical essay is really a subset of a technical writing. But the essay is more, descriptive, and carries a narrative of a technical idea or information. So, but usually the technical papers are meant to be succinct, straight to the point, no beat about the bush. Say what you have to say. Every single line almost has a relationship with what you're talking about. In fact, there's a very clear structure for the papers. So you put in a few statements. One statement is, putting the statement, the topic statement. The next statement explains it. And then you do your next few statements, which is trying to explain what you've just said. And then the next 2 statements are summarizing what you've just said. That's it. And the next paragraph, unless you're presenting results and describing results and providing recommendations. But the essay is free, almost free form, and you are just providing, for instance, you did a little project on fragmentation, like Henry said, at WASA. And then once you put it together, you are describing how the thing happened. You're not publishing it in a peer-reviewed journal. So the peer-reviewed part of it is not there. The technical papers tend to have a peer review. Someone in your knowledge area who has more experience should review it and say that, yes, what you said is right. What you're saying is adding to knowledge, and therefore it's good writing. That's how you peer review something. But usually the essays are not peer reviewed. It has to be good quality, but it doesn't have to be peer reviewed per se.
Okay, thank you so much, Isaac. Yeah, so at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Mohammed to end this session. I'm sorry if your questions were not answered, but I've included my email in the presentation. I'll forward this presentation to your president, which I believe is Wisdom, and then he can share with you. And then I have my email in there. If you have any questions, just contact me. Over to you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Ms. Judith. And also thank you to Mr. Henry and Mr. Isaac for the wonderful contributions. To those that have their questions, as Ms. Judith said, you just forward it to our email. So we have to come to the climax of the webinar. So I will invite Mr. Nathan to please give us a wonderful closing prayer.
Shall we bow down our heads for a short prayer? Father Lord, we thank you for how far you brought us throughout this season. We pray that you make us put to use whatever we've learned here, so that the good initiative and the goodwill and the good reason behind it will be manifested in our life. Father Lord, even as we are departing here, we pray that your presence continue to dwell with us. Let your grace keep us and protect us wherever we are and whatever we touch within this week. Let it be fruitful in the name of Jesus Christ. We pray. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nathan, for the prayer. Okay, so we will invite Mr. Ayena James to give us the vote of thanks so we can finally call this webinar to a conclusion.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed Bello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am very much honored to be asked to give the vote of thanks on this occasion. First of all, I would like to give thanks to the Almighty God for making us to see today and making this webinar a success. On behalf of the chapter, I would like to again express our appreciation to the management of Awesome Takwa Student Chapter for organizing such an educative webinar, especially our founder and sponsor, Mr. Henry Entry, who also gave us his time and added his voice also to tonight's webinar. We would like to thank Mr. Isaac Jakwatatu for his wonderful inputs. I must again also mention our deep sense of gratitude to the speaker tonight, Ms. Judith. We appreciate everything you lost on us tonight. We say God richly bless you. Speaking for 2 hours is not easy. We appreciate you a lot. Also, I want to thank all our honorable delegates, both members and invited members who blessed us tonight with their presence and made this webinar a success. Thank you, everyone, and we hope you enjoy your night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayena. So on that note, that should be the end of this webinar. And then I hope all of us have gained a lot from this webinar and we are ready to impart it into our professional development career.
Sure.
So on that note, we'll call it a night. So goodbye, everyone, and see you once next time.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Good night, everybody.
All right.
It's
Good
still
night.
afternoon here, so I still have some
Right.
time in the day.
Right.
Good night.
Good night too. Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
Veronica. You're welcome.
God bless you.